Okay. Good morning. My name is Maya Wilson, and this is Women in the Workplace. To what extent has the perception of women in the United States workplace affected their ability to succeed in their jobs within the last century? Women joined the workforce in the 1920s. In the 1920s, white women were given the right to vote, which brought along the right to get a job. And from 1920 to the 1930s, it was great. It was a great movement for women to be allowed to work. But in the 1930s, the Great Depression hit. And the jobs that women had weren't really affected by this, but the men in the US were. And because the men were jealous that women were allowed to work and they could continue to work, they deemed women selfish. And how could they allow themselves to work while their husbands, dads, and brothers couldn't? Women of color in this time were only given service positions like maids, cleaners, etc. And the jobs given to women were, as I said before, traditionally female, like a seamstress in this photo here, and nurses, teachers, etc. In this graph from the US Census Bureau shows the annual earnings of men and women. For bachelor's degree, men earn $81,000 to a woman's $60,000, and less than a bachelor's degree is $42,000 men earn, while women earn $32,000. The pay gap between men and women is very big, and it shows that society deems men more superior to women, and they give men more than women for the same education, same experience, etc. Gender biases women experience at work. There's two ends of the spectrum. One, too emotional, too soft for leadership or to work in a leadership position. On the other hand, there's too aggressive, too strong-minded, too opinionated, too strict, too stern. For men, being aggressive and being strict and being very strong and opinionated is great, is what a leader and what a CEO or what any big leadership position in any job is good. But for women, it's not. It's too much. Women are deemed too much. But women are held to a double standard than men. And there's a very small window in between too emotional and too aggressive for women to be able to be a good leader. Stereotypes and myths of working women. Women lack confidence. There's no data, no facts to back this up. Women are more family-oriented, yes. Yes, women are more family-oriented because that's how society has made it so. Yes, women will leave work early or have to not go into work because their child is sick or their child needs something every once in a while. It's not something that happens every single day. Women are too emotional. As I said earlier, men make women too emotional because they deem women weak and they want women to be less than them. Women aren't as qualified as men. There's no data, no factual evidence that supports women aren't as qualified men in the same job. Women of color are treated differently than white women/men. As you can see here in the graph from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the racial pay gap is extensive. For white men, they make $825 to a woman's $654. Asian men and women make more than everybody else, but it's still a big gap between Asian men and Asian women. Women of color are treated less worthy than white women or men. Black women have to work 18 months to receive the same pay as men in 1 year. They have to work double the amount of hours and time to make the same pay as a man that works the same amount but for less. Women of color get less support at work. They aren't given tips, they aren't supported, they have to do it all on their own. And women of color are more than likely than not to work in a hostile work environment. They have to experience racism, prejudice, judgment from white women and white men. Serena Williams is a great example of this. She is one of the best tennis players in history. She's a 23 Grand Slam tournament winner. She is an Olympic gold medalist, and that is a great achievement for anybody, let alone a Black woman. But she is a Black woman in this industry, and for a lot Black women aren't treated the same as a white woman with blue eyes, blonde hair. She is discriminated against. She's diminished for being a Black woman that is succeeding in a field that is not made for her. If she gets mad, like any other athlete would get mad if they're being discriminated against, she is belittled. She is discriminated against based on her color. They call her an angry Black woman because she gets angry. But anybody gets angry. And in the stimulus provided, Rankin interviews Serena, and her father says he describes toughening the girl's skin by bringing busloads of kids around the courts while Venus and Serena practice. I had the kids call them every curse word in the English language, including, he writes, I paid them to do it and told them to do their worst. He wanted to prepare them at a young age for an experience he knew that they would go through. And they did go through. Solutions. Having more women in positions of power and supportive colleagues. Yes, having more women in positions of power will take time. Like anything takes time if you want change to fix something that's broken. Yes, it is a male-dominated workforce, definitely. But as more women become in positions of power and we fix or help men see that their mindsets of women being weaker or lesser than them, it will change and be better. This long-standing issue that needs to be changed comes in a day's time. It takes long, hard work and women up for it to make sure they're able to equally succeed as a man in the workplace. Thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
I do have 2 questions for you. Let me write down the time. Okay. First question. How did your research question evolve as you moved through the process?
At first, I shortened the time from, it wasn't originally last century. I used it in between like the last decade, but I thought a wider range would help better my argument.
All right. On the next question. If you had more time, what additional research would you conduct on this issue?
I think I'd want more of like personal experiences from different women. Like I had Serena Williams, but I feel like if I had specific experience from more famous women and more women that are more famous that have like an experience that shows that women, any type of woman can experience the perception and bias that men feel for women, I feel like that would be better and would have helped.